Listen carefully. In late 2023, the sacred ensembles of the Hoysalas were formally inscribed as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Most aspirants marks the date in their current affairs PDFs, highlighted the names Belur and Halebeedu, and confidently moved on. They think they have covered the topic, but at Metis we know better. UPSC does not reward you for merely knowing a headline. The examiners do not care if you can read a press release or not. They test whether you understand the architectural blueprint and the structural identity behind that headline. In 2026, the question will not be like this: which temple group achieved heritage status? This is not the type of question. UPSC will not ask like this in 2026. The question will dissect systemic design mutations. It will test like this: why a Hoysala temple looks less like it was built by a stone mason and more like it was intricately carved by a master jeweler. The question will be like this: today we do not memorize names. Today we decode the Hoysala DNA. That is structural DNA. That is structural identity, material logic, architectural engineering. We map the logic of the soapstone, the mathematics of the stellate plan, and the mechanics of the lathe. We are moving to the geological logic, the Lathe revolution. That is, before you can decode the art of a civilization, everyone must master its material reality. Look at the great temple traditions of North India, the Nagara schools of Khajuraho or Odisha. They rely primarily on sandstone. Sandstone is hard, highly granular, and brittle. It splits along bedding planes under heavy impact, which inherently limits how deeply an artisan can undercut the medium. It forces heavy, massive geometric forms. Nagara schools of Khajuraho or Odisha. This is all about Nagara schools of Khajuraho or Odisha and primarily speaks about sandstone. But comes to the Hoysala, but the Hoysala architects completely abandoned this regional norm. They anchored their entire structural empire on a specific metamorphic rock, that is Chloritic schist, commonly known as soapstone. So you have to remember one line carefully, and that is geology dictates art. Why and how? Because soapstone is soft and highly malleable. When freshly quarried, it allowed the Hoysala artisans to execute the logic of exactitude that raw sandstone simply forbids. That is the difference. That is the reason For Hoysala, taking soapstone rather than sandstone. When first taken from the earth, chloritic schist is highly soft and responsive to the chisel. However, upon prolonged exposure to the atmosphere, it undergoes a chemical transformation. This is all about soapstone. It loses its moisture and hardens into an unyielding, durable rock face. This unique geological window is why you see lace work in stone. This is why every single micro bed of jewelry on a Shaila Banjika or Madanika bracket figure is distinct, hollowed out from behind and completely separated from the core block. That is why geology dictates art. That is why chloritic schist they used in Hoysala architecture. That is why lace work in stone happened. We are going to discuss about the Lathe revolution. What is this? What is this revolution? This geological softness enabled the single most distinct technological marker of the Hoysala tradition. Lathe turned pillars. Look at these pillars on your slide or screen. They possess a blinding geometric symmetry and a near metallic mirror-like polish. Average student assume this was achieved through tedious hand polishing over generations. That is wrong. This was mechanical engineering. The Hoysala masonic guilds rigged massive heavy duty vertical or horizontal rotational lathes or lathes because the soft chloritic schist known as soapstone could sustain immense rotational friction without fracturing. They could mount an entire block of stone, spin it mechanically, and apply chisels to turn out perfect bell-shaped profiles, grooved rings, and fluted shafts and fluted shafts. This is the making of the Lathe pillars. This is the making of mechanical engineering of Hoysala masonic skills. If a UPSC statement claims that Hoysala pillars display a highly irregular, organic, hand chiseled finish characteristics of hard granite architecture, you have to eliminate the statement instantly because it is mechanical engineering. It is a not hand chiseled characteristic of architecture. This is all about Lathe revolution and the mechanical engineering of Hoysala pillars, that is Lathe pillars. The soft chloritic schist could sustain immense rotational friction without fracturing. That is why they could mount an entire block of stone, spin it mechanically, and apply chisels to turn out perfect bell-shaped profiles, grooved rings, and fluted shafts. That is how they developed and they built, they made Lathe pillars or Lathe pillars. And we are moving to the stellate plan. What is the stellate plan? Our eyes has to be shifted from pillars down to the very footprint of the temple floor. That is the ground plan. What is the ground plan here? The traditional Dravida and Nagara temples are built on a linear square, like square means Chaturasra, or rectangular layout. Traditional Dravida or Nagara temples. Linear square or rectangular layout. But the classic Hoysala Vimana is stellate, means it is a star. Why did they design a star? Was it merely a cosmetic choice? Was it an empty aesthetic indulgence? Absolutely not. It was a structural and a narrative necessity. Why? Why this was structural and a narrative necessity here? The Hoysala masters were obsessed with horizontal narrative density. They wanted to turn the entire exterior wall of the temple into a continuous physical library of the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Puranas. But a simple square wall has strictly limited linear surface area. By taking a square plan and rotating it around a central axis to form a series of star-like projections, often creating a 16 point, 24 point, or even 32 point star. The architects mathematically maximized the surface area of the exterior walls within the exact same structural footprint. In a higher statecraft from follows function, the stellate plan was not an aesthetic whim. It was the maximized spatial canvas engineered by the Hoysalas to host an unprecedented volume of narrative content. Every point of the star creates an alternate projection of light and shadow, turning the exterior wall into a dynamic, shifting architectural tapestry as the sun moves across the sky. They have to be and they want to be narrative density and spatial optimization. The temple has look like a physical library. That is why Hoysalas taken like this stellate plan rather than square or rectangular plan. Because of the stellate plan's maximized surface area, the base of the temple features a unique structural plinth called the Upapita, decorated with continuous wrapping horizontal friezes. That is called as the Upapita hierarchy. That is the horizontal frieze system. UPSC loves functional hierarchy and typology traps. They will give you a list of these bands and scramble their sequence or symbolic meaning. Let's log the architectural matrix from the bottommost layer upward. Like narratives and social life, human senses to Puranic, then creepers and vines. These intricate floral motifs, then horses, speed, cavalry, agility, and speed. Lions, band 3, Alice, sovereignty and courage. Then Makaras, mythical sea creatures, guardians of water. Then elephants, massive structural stability and strength. This is the foundation. This is all I taught from matrix from the bottommost layer upward. I will repeat it again from foundation. From foundation. Let's take from the foundation, the band one is elephants. Why they using elephants in the foundation? Because massive structural stability and strength. After that, next layer from the ground, that is band to Makaras. Those are mythical sea creatures. Those are guardians of water. And from down to the bottom to the upward layer, the third band is lions courage. Lions. For ILS, sovereignty and courage. Then upward, then another layer that is band for horses. For cavalry, agility and speed, it is showing that. And another upward layer, there are creepers, that is band 5. Intricate floral motifs and vines. These are. And the upward final and last and most important band, that is human scenes. That leads to those are Puranic narratives and social life. This is the actual content. This is the architectural matrix from the bottommost layer to upward. They will give you a list of these bands and scramble their sequence or symbolic meaning. Because UPSC loves functional hierarchy and typology traps. That is why this hierarchy will be most useful for preliminary examination 2026. As far as art and architecture and art and culture is concerned, look at the system logic of this ordering. It is a cosmic and physical hierarchy. Let me into go this very deeper. The base layer, that is elephants, band 1, they sit at the absolute bottom because they represent strength and weight bearing stability. They physically hold the temple up. And the second layer, that is Makaras or lions, mythical sea monsters representing the water element, followed immediately by lions or Alice, which symbolize sovereignty, protection, and courage. Then the third layer, then the third layer is horses, positioned above the lions, representing speed, military mobility, and agility. You may wonder why again I am saying this and again repeat it again. Because this is most important for preliminary purpose. Match the following purpose. That is why I am again and again explaining this. And the upper layers, creepers and human narratives. Only after the physical and animal forces are staked do you reach the world of flora, human life, and divine epics. If UPSC gives you a match the following style trap, linking the elephant freeze to speed and the horse freeze to physical foundation, weight bearing. You see the inversion instantly and eliminate it. That is why this is most important for match the following as far as UPSC CSC prelims is concerned. And the most important thing that is Vesara hybridity and the Jagati platform. What is the Jagati platform? What is the Vesara hybridity? Let us now step into the microscopic taxonomy of Indian temple architecture. Where do the Hoysalas fit in the great question of families? Question families. They represent the absolute apex of the Vesara school, often referred to as the hybrid or Deccan style temple architecture. Vesara is the logic of the middle path. It is the architectural bridge that spans the cultural geography between the Vindhyas and the Krishna Kaveri basins. The Hoysala did not create this hybridity out of nothing. They inherited the early templates of the Western Chalukyas of Kalyani and the Rashtrakutas, and then pushed the engineering to its absolute limits. Look at how a Hoysala temple seamlessly fuses conflicting northern and southern architectural components. The Vesara is mix of southern Dravida and northern Nagara element. What is the southern Dravida element? The layout preserves the Vimana logic. What is the Vimana logic? The step-tied arrangement of the main tower, reducing in size as it ascends vertically. That is the Vimana. The tied arrangement of the main tower, reducing in size as it ascends vertically, like steps. The northern Nagara element is the individual tiers of the tower are so closely packed and overlaid with intricate decorative motifs that they mimic the smooth vertical curvilinear shikara silhouette of the North Indian temples. The high Jagati platform is open air Pradakshina system. To unify these elements, the entire star-shaped structure is mounted on a wide elevated masonry platform called Jagati. This is highly a traditional Dravidian temple like the Brihadishwara at Tanjavuru. The circumambulation path, the Pradakshina Patha, is enclosed inside dark stone walled inner corridors. But in a Hoysala temple, because the Garbhagruha is tight and unit, tight and unlit. The open air sources, the open air surface of the high Jagati serves as the primary circumambulation path as the devotees walks along the star pointed contours of the platform outside. The entire epic narrative of the Friezes unfold sequentially at eye level. This is all about the Hoysala architecture of temple. Let's go into the one question, that is the simulation or elimination question for prelims. The question is like this: with reference to the sacred ensembles of the Hoysalas, consider the following statements. First, the extensive utilization of chloritic schist allowed the Masonic guilds to employ mechanical lathes to shape interior pillars with absolute rotational symmetry. This is the statement number one. Second statement, the choice of a stellate ground plan was primarily an aesthetic adaptation to decrease the outer wall surface area, thereby creating a tightly consolidated and plain inner sanctum. And the third statement is, unlike classic Dravidian architecture where the circumambulation path is entirely internalized, the high masonry platform or Jagati of Hoysala temples functions as an open air Pradakshina path. These three statements given in the question, which of the statements given above is are correct? Let us execute strict elimination logic with using statement by statement, step by step. Look at the first statement. It connects the material, chloritic schist or soapstone, to the technology, mechanical lathes or lathes, and the output, rotational symmetry. This is exact interdisciplinary geological engineering loop we decoded in the early slides. So the statements number one is correct. Look at the statement number two. It starts with a truth, the choice of a stellate ground plan. But look at the tail end of the statement. It claims it was designed to decrease the outer well surface area, thereby creating a plain inner sanctum. Think about a mathematical logic here. A star shape increases surface area, it doesn't decrease it. And it was engineered especially to expand the canvas of the intricate horizontal friezes, not to make things plain. This is a classic UPSC inversion trap. Statement 2 is dead. Eliminate options. So look at the statement 3. It accurately draws a contrast between the dark internal corridors of the deep south and the open air elevated Jagati pathway, characteristics of the Vesara Hoysala configuration. So statement 3 is also corrected. So statement 1 and 3 only. In this way, they given in the examination, they will give the exam in the examination like this. Interdisciplinary questions. Total topic into the single question. Also, they will give. So you have to understand very much carefully, enter the topic, and while reading the question you have to be very careful, even reading the statements also and options also. That is the most important thing here is. This is the all regarding about Hoysala architecture. We have to most remember things here is soapstone, lathe pillars, stellate plan, Jagati platform, like these things, and Vesara Hoysala structure. This is that temple architecture, like not Nagara, not Dravida. This is the mixture. This is a hybridization, hybrid structure, Vesara Hoysala architecture. This is majorly two temples. Those are Hoysaleshwara temple and Beluru Chennakeshwara Swami temple. This is the Hoysala architecture. Inside the exam hall, you don't panic because panic destroys memory. So structure creates clarity. Look back at the structural clarity you have built over the last 25 to 30 minutes. We did not spend our time compiling a list of dates or reciting empty tourist descriptions. We mapped the metamorphic properties of chloritic schist, that is also known as soapstone. We validate the rotational mechanisms of the stone lathe, engineering, mechanical engineering. We decoded the mathematical optimization of the stellate plan and tracked the narrative hierarchy of the Upapita phrases from down elephants to upward final human scenes. When you sit for prelims on May 24th, 2026, and the pressure is at absolute peak, do not look for superficial facts. Look for the underlying structural identity. Find the material logic. Isolate the geometric traps. Apply the logic of exactitude and secure your marks. You have to remember chloritic schist, stone lathes, lathe pillars, Upapita friezes, Jagati platform, Vesara architecture, Vesara Hoysala architecture, difference between Nagara and Dravida, difference between soapstone and sandstone, Vimana, Mandapa. You have to have the knowledge on these things. So this is Niranjan Ankilla signing off for Metis IAS family. Prepare with structure, not confusion. I will see you at the top. Thank you and all the best.